Flood Your Body with Oxygen by best-selling author Ed McCabe is an exhaustive encyclopedia on the subject of oxygen therapies for our polluted world. Ed has over 17 years of investigative journalism, is a best-selling author, and leading authority on oxygen modalities. His first book, Oxygen Therapies, went on to become a bestseller, selling over 250,000 copies. Ed has also appeared in over 1,500 radio, TV, and lecture platforms worldwide.
Ed McCabe, who's the author of this book.
No, Ed McCabe is a journalist who has tried oxygen for his arthritis.
Affectionately known as Mr. Oxygen by thousands worldwide, Ed has helped to pave the way in the now growing oxygen therapies field. From books, articles, interviews, and lectures, Ed has been the voice that has brought global awareness for nearly 2 decades.
That the pollution is in the groundwater, it's in the air, all this stuff. It's in you.
As these toxins make their way through the food chain, as they get into the groundwater, they get into our bodies.
So the first big oxy truth is that all diseases are caused ultimately by toxins in the body.
So the two truths are, the cause of all disease is toxicity, and all the bacteria, viruses, funguses, and pathogens that cause disease are anaerobic.
And anaerobes can't live in active forms of oxygen.
The interesting thing about the vast majority of these microbes is that they are strictly or partially anaerobic. They can't stand a high level of oxygen.
This is the book. Ed's the author of the book. This tells the story, folks. This tells the truth that the government and the drug companies...
It's the complete story about the suppression of these therapies in the United States due to economic and political factors.
Well, thank you all for coming. This is the Oxygen Therapies lecture. I am Ed McCabe, the author of the book, Flood Your Body with Oxygen. And my first book sold 250,000 copies, and that was without a major publisher. So people want to know what these things are and how they can use them in their lives. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, then I'm going to tell you what's wrong, and then I'm going to tell you the things that are available for you to do something about what's wrong. So I hope at the end of the lecture you'll have more knowledge than you came in with, and you'll understand how simple all this really is. Okay, from the beginning of the book, this is Mona Harrison, MD. She's the former assistant dean at the Boston University School of Medicine, and she said, "Take note, the interest this book will unleash is noteworthy. Both lay and professional persons who secretly will not admit their ignorance in this emerging field of study will use it as a guide." Again, that's the former assistant dean at the Boston University Medical School. So she must have known what she was talking about. Why is oxygen therapy, oxygen, important to us? Let's consider some of the statistics first. Humans breathe in and out around 370 quarts, or 92.5 gallons, or 350 liters of oxygen every 24 hours. So every 24 hours, 370 quarts of oxygen is going into your body. But we only use 1/4 of the air we breathe. We exhale 3/4 of it unused. Someone weighing 154 pounds or 70 kilograms builds up and breaks down again around 176 pounds or 80 kilograms of ATP in 24 hours. And 70% of the body's defense is in the intestines. We'll get into that later. First, I want to review for you some of the available literature as to what the problem is among human society at this point in time, as far as so many people are getting disease, so many people get prematurely old, so many people have aging far beyond what they should if this was a natural environment, pristine, without the pollution, etc. And I'm going to build a little case here quickly. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go over this very quickly, just read the headlines basically. But here's some either newspaper articles or clinical studies or peer-reviewed journals or news reports or websites that have articles about this. So what we're going to be talking about here is the increase in pollution, the response of the medical institutions to this, what they're doing about it, and in the end, I will show you what you can do about it personally because of all these problems I'm going to tell you about. Okay, if you were fed a lot of sugar when you were a child, your taste preferences are formed then, and today's diabetes and obesity epidemics are a result of mommy feeding you a lot of sugar. Isn't that interesting? 13 pesticides are found in the body of the average American. 13 pesticides. A comprehensive survey of more than 1,300 Americans has found traces of weed and bug killers in the bodies of everyone tested. The survey was conducted by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Credible source. Okay, here's the Georgetown University Medical Center. Researcher sheds light on ghostwriting in medical journals. So what happens is someone's writing a peer-reviewed article or whatever. He gets a ghostwriter to come in. He's not even the guy that did the research. He's got a ghostwriter writing the medical sites that then people make decisions on. Well, is that process flawed? Here we have rogue chemist blows whistle on big pharmaceuticals. Greg Ciola, the editor of Crusader, interviewed whistleblower Shane Ellison, Master of Science, former pharmaceutical chemist and author of the book Health Myths Exposed. His book is a timely and scathing expose about the war on deadly FDA-approved drugs. Ellison felt it was his responsibility to reveal the truth about the sordid tactics of the pharmaceutical industry after he witnessed firsthand how they deceive the public. So fraud within the peer-reviewed journal process, etc. And this chemist is showing you how big pharma is making a lot of money by lying to you. Now contrast this to the many people I've met who said, oh, well, if it was any good, my doctor would tell me all about it. And, you know, what you're teaching, it sounds great, but, you know, unless my doctor, well, your doctor's being lied to. Keep that in mind. Your doctor is being lied to, and that's the problem. Okay, the Scotsman, ex-medical journal editor, reveals drug firms' dirty tricks. Pharmaceutical companies are using their massive financial clout to corrupt medical journals by rigging clinical trials of new drugs, was claimed today. Who's claiming this? Well, it's Richard Smith, former editor of the British Medical Journal. He's exposed a series of tricks used by drug firms to ensure good publicity for their products in prestigious journals. He said it was often impossible for editors of the journals to spot a rigged trial, despite the process of peer review, where research is checked independently, and also highlighted a conflict of interest because publishing trials by major drug companies would result in increased sales of the medical journal. So you see the sweetheart deal they've got with each other. You're being lied to. Well, statistics prove that prescription drugs are 16,400% more deadly than terrorists. If you compare the number of people killed by terrorists to what's going on. What if 6 jumbo jets crashed every day in the United States? This is from newstarget.com. And these jumbo jets that crashed claimed the lives of 783,936 people every year. That would certainly qualify as a massive tragedy, wouldn't it? Jumbo jet every day crashing, okay? Well, forget what if. The tragedy is happening right now. Over 750,000 people actually do die in the United States every year, although not from plane crashes. They die from something far more common and rarely perceived by the public as dangerous. That is modern medicine. A 2003 medical report, Death by Medicine. Where does the media attention for this tragedy, for all these people dying? Where's the media reporting of the jumbo jet crash? They'd be right there in the scene, but this happens every day, and they say nothing. Where's the government support for stopping these medical mistakes before they happen? The authors of the study involved a painstaking review of thousands of medical records. The United States spends $282 billion annually on deaths due to medical mistakes or iatrogenic deaths. That's a conservative estimate. Only a fraction of medical errors are reported according to the study. Actual mistakes are likely to be up to 20 times higher than the reported number because doctors fear retaliation. They fear retaliation for those mistakes. That's why they're not reported. So it's probably 20 times higher. Over 1 million patients are injured in the U.S. hospitals each year. Approximately 280,000 die annually as a result of these injuries. Therefore, the iatrogenic death rate, doctor-caused, hospital-caused death rate, dwarfs the annual automobile accident mortality rate of 45,000 and accounts for more deaths than all other accidents combined. This report was issued 10 years ago, when America had 34 million fewer citizens and drug company scandals like the Vioxx recall hadn't happened yet. USA Today exposes conflicts of interest in FDA drug approvals. FDA advisors are tied to the industry. What they are talking about is that 92% of the meetings, at least one member had a financial conflict of interest. at 55% of the meetings. Half or more of the FDA advisors had conflicts of interest, and conflicts were the most frequent in the 57 meetings when broader issues were discussed. 92% of the members had conflicts. At the 102 meetings dealing with the fate of a specific drug, 33% of the experts had a financial conflict. So, we have a problem. All these drugs, attendant side effects, the dangerous things that can happen to you once you get into the system and you start taking these drugs are not designed to cure anything. These drugs are designed to keep you buying more drugs. They make you feel just good enough so you can keep going to work and keep paying for more drugs. They're not designed to cure anything. Now, the problem with a lot of these disease epidemics we're hearing about, West Nile virus, SARS, all this stuff, is everybody says, well, you take one of the aspirins or the NSAIDs to lower the natural viral infection fever. Well, that's the exact opposite thing we need to be doing. That's why they're spreading. I'll explain it. This is from Marshall Smith, editor of Brojan Gazette. Now, he doesn't know about oxygen, so he didn't include that in here, but we'll get to that. The viral core molecule of an RNA cannot produce if the body temperature is above 101 degrees. Humans have genetically developed a natural method to defeat viral infections called a fever. With a mild fever of 101 degrees, the telomeres on the ends of the RNA molecule cannot attach and the virus cannot reproduce itself, and the body's white blood cells quickly destroy the invading virus. But the modern regular treatment for a fever from a cold or flu is to reduce the fever to ease the discomfort. You see, you can't kill the virus if you take away the fever. By lowering the fever below 100 degrees, the invading virus is allowed to reproduce and spread massively throughout the body. If the multitude of viruses finally cross the blood-brain barrier, the result is a fever of 104 or more, causing brain damage and death. This is often called Reye's syndrome or viral encephalitis, and is not a disease, but the result of improper treatment with aspirin or other NSAIDs to lower the natural viral infection fever. The best advice: do not try to lower a fever. It's your genetically derived natural human defense against a viral infection. Many older doctors knew this, which is the reason for the old docs saying, go to bed, stay warm, drink fluids. But younger docs just out of med school have been taught there's a drug or a pill to treat everything. The result of using expensive pills or over-the-counter medications to reduce the fever from colds and flu, and we're talking about SARS and other viral illnesses as well, is prolonged illness, the epidemic spread of viral diseases, and the unneeded deaths of hundreds of thousands each year. Don't buy it. What about pollution? Well, the EPA headquarters Union of Scientists, the scientists within the EPA, oppose fluoridation. Isn't that interesting? Their union is going to the FDA saying, we don't want fluoridation. Our union, formerly National Federation of Federal Employees, Local 2050, and since April 98, Chapter 280 of the National Treasury Employees Union, took the stand it did opposing fluoridation of drinking water supplies. What about in the home? Toxic Teflon frying pans. There's an odd thing going on where when people heat things up with a toxic frying pan, the canary may die. Now, we all know that they use canaries in mine shafts to sense poisonous gas. Here's Science News. This is Science News. And they're talking about smog clogs arteries. Pollution does lasting harm to blood vessels. BBC News, traffic damages male fertility. Fumes from cars and other vehicles may damage male fertility, a study suggests. Dr. Michael DeRosa and colleagues at the University of Naples examined the sperm of 85 men employed at motorway toll gates. On average, they were exposed to traffic fumes for 6 hours a day. They found that the toll gate workers had poorer sperm quality and in particular had lower sperm motility, which means they are less likely to be able to fertilize a female egg. The sperm of the study group was more feeble and less active. Now, we're talking about the human reproduction, human development, the continuing of our species. And what are we doing to ourselves? Okay, Science News Online. No deep breathing. Air pollution impedes lung development. Spending one's childhood in a community with polluted air stalls lung development. So not only is it hurting you, it's genetically hurting you and preventing your organs from growing correctly. BBC News, pollution is linked to heart disease. Air pollution caused by traffic in factories may cause heart disease, a U.S. study suggests. The pollution seemed to cause the narrowing of arteries. University of Southern California team studied almost 800 people aged over 40 living in the Los Angeles area. Certain pollutants have an inflammatory effect on the inner linings of arteries. Science magazine, do airborne particles induce heritable mutations? Offspring of mice exposed to industrial location on western Lake Ontario have increased rate of presumptive mutations. The mutation rate could be reduced by 50% by cleaning the air. Depleted uranium. I don't know if you've heard about this one yet. This is from Democracy Betrayed. The horror of depleted uranium is not limited to Iraq. See, what they do is the U.S. military went over there and fired all these tank shells and cannon shells into places. Well, the case of the shells was depleted uranium. They found a way to take a waste product, depleted uranium, and put it around armor-piercing rounds because it can do that very easily. But then when it explodes, well, of course, it leaves depleted uranium everywhere. Quote, I'm horrified. The people out there, the Iraqis, the media, and the troops risk the most appalling ill health, especially like the guys in the Humvees sitting on the case of ammo. They're sitting with their genitals right on top of cases of depleted uranium. And the radiation from depleted uranium can travel literally anywhere. It's going to destroy the lives of thousands of children all over the world. We all know how far radiation can travel. Radiation from Chernobyl reached Wales, and in Britain, you sometimes get red dust from the Sahara on your car. The speaker is not some alarmist doomsayer. It's Dr. Chris Busby, the British radiation expert, fellow of the University of Liverpool and the Faculty of Medicine and UK representative on the European Committee on Radiation Risk, talking about this best-kept secret of the war. The fact that by illegally using hundreds of tons of depleted uranium against Iraq, Britain and America have greatly endangered not only the Iraqis but the whole world. For these weapons have released deadly carcinogenic and mutagenic radioactive particles in such an abundance that, whipped up by sandstorms and carried on the trade winds, there is no corner of the globe they cannot penetrate, including Britain. For the wind has no boundaries and time is on their side, because the radioactivity persists for 4,500 million years and can cause cancer, leukemia, brain damage, kidney failure, extreme birth defects. Again, the birth defects, pollution linked to birth defects, okay? So we're destroying our species, killing millions of every age for centuries to come. A crime against humanity, which may, in the eyes of historians, rank with the worst atrocities of all the times. They're calling this omnicide, kills everything. Portrait of pollution. Nation's fresh water gets a checkup. Virtually all of America's fresh water is tainted with low concentrations of chemical contaminants. Pesticides were 94% of all water samples. More than 400 scientists tested thousands of rivers, aquifers, wells, fish, and sediments across the country over a 10-year period. They analyzed some 11 million samples for more than 600 chemicals. It's a huge expansion, says Timothy Miller, chief of the USGS Office of Water Quality. It's a world away from what we were doing in the 70s and 80s. The report reveals blurring boundaries between rural and urban pollution. He expected to find gasoline pollution in the cities, but was surprised to find it out in the farm country as well. What's the result of this? Well, we have a group, the Environmental Working Group in Washington, D.C. Unborns may be exposed to harmful pollutants. Tested the umbilical cord blood of 30 mothers and infants and found over 300 toxic chemicals and pesticides in the blood of the umbilical cord forming the new baby. All right, mad cow disease, worse than we're being told, says the man who killed the first cow in Washington. Dave Lothan, I'm the guy that killed that mad cow. It was processed into hamburger along with 50 other cows and shipped to 8 states, and it was eaten by thousands of people. Some of these people will contract BSE, bovine spongiform encephalitis, and die. West Nile virus, okay, how do you treat West Nile virus? Well, you give them aspirin and the NSAIDs, right? Well, that stops the fever and allows it to spread, so now we have an epidemic. This just goes on and on. What about cancer? Well, of course all this is linked to cancer, because cancer, above all other diseases, has countless secondary causes. This is Dr. Otto Warburg, 2-time Nobel Prize winner. But even for cancer, there's only one prime cause of cancer. Summarized in a few words, the prime cause for cancer is the replacement of the normal respiration of oxygen by cells by a fermentation of sugar. So what happens is your body is filled with pollution. Because of that, the respiration mechanism of the cells, each cells, your billions of cells, their ability to breathe is hurt. The worst ones to get hurt, they have to switch from breathing oxygen to fermenting the body's sugar. They start fermenting glucose. Your body's full of glucose sugar for giving you energy. Well, if you can't breathe oxygen, then what happens is your body will start fermenting the sugar to get energy. It's a lower order of evolution, but it supplies enough to keep you alive. So in essence, what we're talking about is that cancer is a survival mechanism. Cancer is the way the body keeps itself alive by getting enough energy to stay alive, because it can't breathe oxygen because of the lack of oxygen has damaged the cellular respiration. So ultimately the cause of cancer, whether it's toxic stuff or pollution or damage or injury or chemicals, it comes down to the damage of the respiratory mechanism of the cell, and that causes the cell to ferment sugar instead of breathe oxygen. There you go. Why do you think we have so much cancer? It's because the oxygen levels in the bodies are dropping. Why do you think I've been to clinics all over the world and watched people get injected with active forms of oxygen and the cancer goes away? If they do it long enough and they clean their blood out, I've seen it go away time and time and again. It's because you're putting back in what's missing. You're giving the body all the oxygen it needs in an active form that can use easily, and the body likes that. So what's the result of all this? I just told you about all the toxins and the studies linking genetic disease to toxins, other diseases to toxins. Well, medical bills are playing a big role in bankruptcies. Disastrous medical bills play a huge role in personal bankruptcies in the United States. They account for about 40% of the bankruptcy filings last year. Harvard Law professor Elizabeth Warren says that she's painting a very different picture from the image offered by credit card companies of out-of-control spenders trying to beat the legal system through bankruptcy. So they're trying, these wild spends. No, it's not that. It's the nation's seniors who can't pay their drug bills and hospital bills. 40% of our people, our mothers, our fathers, our uncles and aunts, when they get older, us in time, bankrupt from having to pay for all this medicine, which I've shown you has all these problems, is the leading cause of death in the United States. The study, first reported in Tuesday's Washington Post, also found that seniors and women, as well as families headed by single women, were the groups in bankruptcy that were hardest hit by the medical expenses. What about just your energy level? The thing I hear at the shows and wherever I go when I lecture, how can I get more energy? Ed, I need more energy. We don't have enough energy. Well, your energy comes from your oxygen. Whether or not you've got enough oxygen determines that. We derive more than 90% of our energy from breathing, not from apples or steaks or tofu or water, but from the air. 90% of our energy is from the air. So why did I write the book, Flood Your Body with Oxygen? 2 reasons. Number 1 is so you can have more energy. Number 2 is it's a catalog. Flood Your Body with Oxygen is a catalog of all known ways of oxygen delivery to the human body. Most people don't want to sit around in yoga postures, deep breathing, meditatively, and diaphragmatic breathing for hours every day, which is what's required these days because of the level of pollution within our society. Most people don't have time to do that. They want a solution. So the book is a catalog of that and all other ways, supplements, going to a doctor, whatever it is, all known ways of oxygenating the human body. Now, why do we want to oxygenate the human body? Well, there's 2 main reasons. Number 1 is, I was just talking about all this pollution, all the stuff that gets in you, all the stuff that kills you, that's going to genetically mutate your children, all this stuff that's already in you. If I sample your blood right now, it's filthy. It's going to be a dark color, maybe the color of the suit or darker than that. And it's supposed to be a bright cherry red. On the back of my book, you'll see 2 blood samples. One is the color of your blood right now, sitting here, breathing this air here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, right down the street from the power plant. Okay, your blood is supposed to be bright cherry red. How do I know that? Because when I go to clinics where people are getting active oxygen, ozone, medical ozone therapy, which is used all over the world, yet not taught in American medical schools, these people's blood turns bright cherry red when they get healthy and go home. So maybe I know what I'm talking about. Maybe I've been talking 17 years now at least about all this stuff, trying to tell people that disease is no mystery. The link to pollution and disease is legion. I just got a few of the studies here. We can go on and on and on. Okay, so the first thing the body does with oxygen when you put it into the body is it detoxifies. It takes out the trash. Your body is trying to take out the pollution that you've been collecting within your body, within your cells, within everything within you. All the food you ate, all the stuff you drank, all the stuff you breathed, the recreational drugs, the cigarettes, the alcohol. whatever is in all the things you've put into or absorbed into your body, it's been piling up, piling up, piling up, piling up, piling up, piling up. Now it's to the point where you're starting to break down. You have less and less energy. You want to jump out of the car on the freeway and shoot somebody. Your kid's got all these problems. They got, their bodies are filled with mucus. The doctor's putting plastic tubes in their ears. Do you think that's natural? Put a plastic tube in a kid's ear because he can't stop the mucus from being generated? Well, it's the body. Mucus is an insulation trying to cover up all this irritating, poisonous pollution that we've been collecting within our bodies. And I just showed you that the umbilical cord has over 300 toxic chemicals in it. So each generation is going to be weaker and weaker and sicker unless we clean up the environment, oxygenate our bodies, clean up the water, find better sources of fuel and energy that aren't polluting. And they're around. It's not like the technology is not there. I read story after story after story about inventors that came out with cars that run on water, zero-point energy, whatever you want to call this stuff, where they find a way to have free, non-polluting, or inexpensive, non-polluting ways of producing energy. And yet these things are covered up so that business as usual will continue at the behest of the people that own the drug companies, the people that own the chemical companies, the people that own all the manufacturing facilities. They all belong to exclusive clubs and say, we're going to leave it just like it is. We're all making money. We're getting fat and happy on this money. We're killing everybody, but so what? I got a lot of money. My kids go to the best schools. That's not going to work anymore because everybody on the planet is being affected. Everybody's umbilical cord blood is becoming polluted, toxic, and dirty. We can't have that happen because we're destroying the species. We're already damaging it. It's surfacing in all the literature. The only way to take toxins out of the body is with oxygen. You can do the fast, you can go the herbal route, you can do this and that, but nothing leaves the body unless it is first combined with oxygen. Nothing leaves the body unless it's first combined with oxygen. So you have to understand, getting enough oxygen into your body is the point of detoxification, staying alive, not prematurely aging, not dying in bed full of pain, all drugged up with tubes sticking out of your body in one of these iatrogenic death mills where all these people are going bankrupt. That's not our future. We don't want it to be that. We want to do something about it. The place you start is with you. You start putting supplemental oxygen into your body. I don't care how you do it. All the ways are listed in the book. However you want to do it, you're going to feel better. You're going to tell somebody, hey, I feel better. Hey, this stuff works. He knows what he's talking about. I've had people after people stand up in my lectures in the last 17 years. If someone was asking like a snotty question, or if this is any good, my doctor would tell me about it. And they'd stand up and they'd chastise him right on the spot. And they'd go, look, I was 2 weeks from death when I came in here last year. Listen to what this man is saying. It's a year later. He's perfectly healthy. His hair's turned from gray back to black. We know what's going on. It's the buildup of the pollution, the lack of minerals in the soil. Number two, the only way things can leave the body is by adding oxygen to them. For example, this is still number one. For example, you're breathing. Well, the gas coming out of me is CO2, carbon combined with oxygen plus H2O. It's warm, it's wet, and it's a gas. See how oxygen was in there? Okay, so same thing, SO2, NO2, all the things that come out of all your orifices, you sweat out. These things are all dependent on oxygen. The second big truth is that bacteria, viruses, funguses, and pathogens cannot live because they're anaerobes. They cannot live in active forms of oxygen. So why do you think, with those two things, the only way you can clean out the trash is with oxygen? The only way you can clean out the trash is with oxygen, and the only thing that safely will kill all the bacteria, viruses, fungus, and pathogens in the human body is nature's oxygen. It's designed to do that. Your immune system runs on it. You make your own, in your immune system, you make your own oxidative species chemicals like hydrogen peroxide in natural form. Go in and kill all the bacteria. Your lymphocytes make that, squirt it on the bacteria. That's how they kill it. Scripps Institute finding out the body produces subspecies of ozone. The two things I've been teaching about for 17 years now. All of a sudden, the medical literature is starting to say, gee, what he said was right back then. You know, and they're just starting to, well, maybe it's possible. Well, I'm telling you, I've been to clinics, people dying on their deathbeds, various diseases, cancer, AIDS, whatever you want to call it. Their blood is filthy. They get a series of supplements or ozone injection, medical ozone, again, not taught in U.S. medical schools, used all over the world. They get healthy and they go home. Now, so there must be something to it. So the two main things, the removal of toxicity and all the bacteria, viruses, fungus, pathogens that cause all the diseases, viruses linked to cancer, et cetera, flus, common cold, all that depends on oxygen. Those two things. removing all your pollution, which causes everything, because the bugs come in and they live on the pollution. Then they go to the bathroom in your body. Then more bugs come in and live on that. They go to the bathroom in your body. The more bugs come in. Meanwhile, they're all eating your cells. You're getting filled up. You're getting old. You're getting wrinkled. All this stuff is happening to you. It doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to happen. Not that quick, anyway. Not that quick. So the whole point is flood your body with oxygen. That's the point of the book. That's the point of my lectures. That's why I go around. There's such a political problem, such a political problem. Anyway, for an example of supplements, here in Florida, we have a manufacturer that makes OxyLift. This is OxyLift. What OxyLift does is it fills the body with ionic minerals, it creates oxygen within the body, and it gives you amino acids, enzymes, and a base of structured water, plus it has subtle energies of respiratory boosting in it as part of its secret sauce, the manufacturer likes to call it. So that's an example of how simple this is. You just take a bottle of this stuff and you put it in what you're drinking, or you take a drink of it. You know, you squirt some in your mouth. How much simpler is that? That's something that I do every day, and you can do very simply. There's another product they make called OxyFlush. Now what OxyFlush does is OxyFlush goes into your intestines and colon, creates oxygen. The oxygen liquefies or oxidizes all the pollution, all the garbage, the mucus, everything that's been collecting in there your entire life, and you start getting your colon cleaned out. It also makes it very much more pleasurable to go to the bathroom because it comes out easier and it's smoother and it's very nice, very nice. That's another product. These are just examples. There's thousands of products out there now, but when I started there was nothing. Isn't that interesting? When I started teaching this about 17 years ago, there was no industry. Now we have oxygen supplement industries, we have oxygen device industries. You can get your ozone and air oxygen purified, you can get your water oxygen and ozone purified, you can get your body oxygen and ozone purified with supplements. You can buy devices, you can put your feet in them, you can put your body in them, you can put them in the air, you put them in the car. There's all kinds of ways to put more oxygen in your life, in your environment. The next thing I decided was, okay, I formulated the OxyLift, and then I said, okay, what can we do next? What's the next thing? Well, the next thing is nobody has enough minerals. Your body is made of minerals. If you notice a plant, when the plant grows, the soil goes down, that's where the plant comes from. That's where the trees came from. The soil sucked up by the bacteria clinging to the nodules and the roots of the plant, digesting the soil, turning it into food, sending it up the plant, and the plant grows. Well, that's where the plant comes from. That's where we come from, but we're not rooted in the ground. We walk around and we forage. So when we forage, we are putting mineral delivery into our body. We're delivering minerals into our body. None of the food since the 30s, because of the huge agribusinesses, has enough minerals in it. You don't have a full complement of minerals. One of the worst offenders is the lack of sulfur. Sulfur determines your cell wall permeability. What does that mean? That means your cell's ability to absorb oxygen, minerals, and water. And in the reverse direction, the cell's ability to throw out the trash. So if your body doesn't have cell wall permeability, if the cells in your body simply are leathery, you're getting prematurely old first, it'll start showing on your face and your body because your cell wall flexibility, the cell membrane flexibility is not there anymore. So the missing sulfur has to be put back in. Now, why does the sulfur disappear from the soil? Well, when they make the artificial fertilizer, which was required by the New Deal in the 50s, when they started putting the artificial fertilizer into the plants, into the agribusinesses, the sulfur boils off at 180 degrees, I think it is, which they use to make the fertilizer. So we've had a chronic sulfur deficiency since the 50s in this country. So one of the things that's in the OxyEarth, which I formulated to answer these specific needs, is you've got 78 or so minerals from ancient humic shale, which is the plants that are at the bottom of the desert, which used to be the ocean floor. It's the old sea vegetation. Dig that up, add to that MSM, which is nature's sulfur delivery system, add to that vitamin C so that the sulfur is absorbed easily. This is the second most important thing. It is my belief, and we've had people energetically test these. They test this, the OxyLift, and it comes up like a 9.8 on a 10-point scale. Most products are 4 and 5, okay? 9.8 and 10-point scale, because it's what you need. It's the base of everything. And then they test the OxyEarth, and they said this one is a 10. Okay, 9.8 and 10. What happens if you take them both? You're off the scale. So if people would just buy and use daily just these two things, or anything like it. I don't care whose you buy. I don't care. Just giving you an idea here. So there's a lot you can do just by replacing what's missing. What's missing is your oxygen. What's missing is nobody is hydrated enough. Nobody has enough water in their body. Nobody drinks enough water. Our thirst mechanism is somehow impaired because of all the pollution. The cells cannot signal each other and say, hey, I'm thirsty, send me some water. All they hear is because of all the garbage. All the cells are covered up with garbage. So they're trying to communicate to each other, either chemically or electromagnetically or spiritually or whatever your belief is, but they can't because they're covered with slime, covered with mucus, they're covered with pollution, they're covered with undigested particulates of food matter, bacteria, viruses, fungus, and pathogens living on that, living on the cells, trying to digest you. You know, you go out to the dumpster and there's a rotting piece of meat in there or a dead rat or something. It's covered with flies, it's got a stink to it, there's bacteria, maggots. That's what's going on inside you at a microscopic level because the bugs think you're a good source of food. Because you don't have enough oxygen, because of all the pollution you've collected within your bodies and within your cells your entire life, plus the lack of fresh, clean oxygen in the air. We've got so much smog and pollution, the air turns green or orange. I've seen it in Los Angeles. I've been to Los Angeles and gotten shortness of breath. Mexico City, I flipped on the air conditioner and dust flew out of the air conditioner, making the room even hotter and more filthy, and I couldn't open the window because it was no better outside. That's not a way to live. In Korea, you can't see the sun. We've had people come to the booth and say, you know, all we see is like a silver disc behind this haze. How can we continue? This is a recent phenomenon. It's happened so fast that nobody's noticed, well, we know it's bad, but everybody seems to be alive. Yeah, but look at the skyrocketing disease rate. Look at the skyrocketing incidence of disease in younger and younger people. Look at all the older people that are passing away more quickly, painfully, stuffed full of drugs, tubes in their body, that don't have to be. If we could just clean out these bodies, start with cleaning out your room. Get an ozone air purifier for your room. Start putting some of this stuff in your body. Take drops of whatever you got, stick it in your body. Get something going, at least one thing. Then if you'll notice that starts to work very well, then you get two things. Then you say, hey, you know, that seems to be telling me something here that I didn't really think about before, and it's working. I have more energy. I noticed when I got out of the chair, I didn't get up like this. I went, boing. And I got out of the chair. You know, I watch this happen to people. They used to walk around real slow. Now they run to the other room when the phone rings. It's like, okay. They're getting better. They're cleaning out. You see, it's our God-given birthright to be healthy and happy, spiritually aware. Part of the problem here is it's deadening your consciousness, your very consciousness, because your cells, your brain cells, are being covered with slime and mucus, and so you get the brain tumors and the Alzheimer's, the collection of the aluminum in the back of the brainstem. All this stuff going on, it doesn't have to be. You can clean it all out. You can look at, what am I drinking today? Is this purified tap water in a very soft plastic thing, or is it ozonated spring water in a hard plastic that doesn't have as much problem, or even better in a glass bottle? You know, just those little choices you make all day long. You go to the supermarket, should I get a canned fruit or should I get a fresh fruit? Well, the fresh fruit has the life force in it. The canned fruit may be there, may chemically test as the same as the fresh fruit, but the life force is gone. The enzymes are gone. This is the problem with all the processed food. There was people on some of the bodybuilders used to say, if man touched it, leave it alone. So if you take that to heart, you'll find that you're going to have a much better life, a much better senior time, and your children will be happier because you'll be feeding them the same thing, and they'll grow up and they'll be better off as well. And what I've tried to do is formulate these basic products: the OxyLift, the OxyEarth, the OxyFlush. Then we also have, there's an OxySil, which is silica, which is vital for your blood vessels to work, hair, skin, and nails, in a super absorbable form, where it's so small it goes straight in through all the garbage, straight through all the pollution because it's so tiny. Your body can use it finally. And it's natural plant form. They're not rocks. We've also taken the highest quality materials. I've found that people who do major oxygen cleansing with either ozone therapy, or they drink, let's say, food-grade hydrogen peroxide in a dilute form, which used to be the only way you could do this. Well, there's a lot of those stories still going around. Those people will have cleansing reactions that aren't suitable for the masses, for the general public. So I came up with these formulas so that people, anybody who knows nothing about nutrition, who's never done a cleanse, is eating cheeseburgers and sitting in front of the TV for 50 years, smoking dope and drinking beer, He can use it, they can use it, she can use it, and not have a real bad problem. But the trick is you got to use, as far as the cleansing reaction goes, where it all flushes out real quickly and you don't feel good. But those people can take it for a long time. And it's the long time, it's the continual everyday use of the product that makes it work so well. We've interviewed all kinds of people that have tried the product, or all the products, whatever, and I say, what happened? They say, well, it didn't work, you know, I tried it. I said, well, tell me about how often did you take it? Tell me about how many days you took it, how many weeks, how many months you took it. Oh, well, I tried it a couple of times, and, you know. Those are the people that don't get results. Everybody I've tracked, because this is the basis of life. Minerals, oxygen, and water are the basis of life. Missing sulfur, for example, the basis of life itself. If they don't take it continuously every day without fail for, let's say, 3, 4, 5 months, they're not going to see the possibilities that are available once you replenish your reserves that are missing. Once you get your body the raw materials it needs, your DNA, your RNA, all of it is set up perfectly to repair you, to fix you, to give you energy, to give you health, and give you happiness. Okay, the number one cause of disease in the world is waterborne pollution. So you could take something very, very simple that costs just pennies, give it to everybody in the world, and there would be no more water pollution. Why? Because it's real simple. The bacteria, the viruses, fungus, and pathogens like E. coli, like HIV, like the flu virus, like the spongiform bovine encephalitis, they're all anaerobes. Anaerobes cannot live in oxygen. So you put oxygen in the water, are you going to clean it? Yes, that's why the federal government mandates you must ozonate the water if it crosses state lines to purify it. And then they stand up in front of Congress and say ozone is quackery in the medicine area. Well, excuse me, your body is 2/3 water. You've mandated you have to put ozone into water to purify it. My body is 2/3 water, but you're telling me that it's quackery that we put ozone by injection or drip or recirculatory hemoperfusion in a human body? Well, I got a meeting to go to. He's gone. When I started, there was nothing. But I went out and I did 1,500 radio, TV shows, and speaking platforms all over the world. I sold 250,000 of my first book. This one is like on 30,000 now. We've sold already, and it's just been growing exponentially. There's people that came to my lectures 10 years ago are now the manufacturers and presidents of supplement companies all over the world. So it's my disciples, so to speak, have gone out and spread the message that I delivered, doing all the pioneering research and interviews. I'm the only person in the world that's been around the world interviewing doctors using the oxygen therapies, using the ozone therapies, using oxygen supplementation, active oxygen supplementation sometime, in their practices for years and years and years. I'm the only person that's done that. I came back and put that all in this book. I'm independent. You go to my website, which is oxygenhealth.com, oxygenhealth, HEALTH.com. You go there, there's plenty of articles. You can search 500 medical articles. Type in your favorite disease or your keyword and see what everybody says about oxygen and that. Okay, and then that says, well, if you want to get products, probably the best place to go is to Rick's website, which is called oxygenamerica.com. And he's got a full complement of things. I consult with him, so I recommend to him, well, this product's good, this is good, this looks good. Here, you want to take these formulas, you want to produce it? I want the best products I can out for the people, at least available somewhere. He said he'd do it, so that's why he's the guy. With the Codex Alimentarius in Europe being passed, and I've even heard stories coming out of Australia where they've outlawed all supplements, and you go into a health food store, sorry, I can't sell it to you anymore. Why not? I'll go to jail. I mean, and people in this country believe, oh, that could never happen here. And yet, illegally, against the Constitution of the United States, the FDA sent representatives to the Codex over in Europe and tried to, through the backdoor means of hooking the United States into signing a treaty about this banning of all quote-unquote unapproved, well, unapproved by who, traditional supplements, traditional naturopathic, traditional homeopathic, traditional remedies that have been around for centuries. They're trying to outlaw them. Of course, it's the drug companies behind this trying to eliminate the competition. So what's going to happen in this country, I don't know. I don't know if these products are going to be exempted as generally regarded as safe, but I would assume that oxygen, which we've been breathing for how many years? And minerals, which we've been eating for how many years? I think they are probably more towards something that's going to be harder for them to outlaw and then make it prescription only so they can make more money selling them back to us. I think that's going to be harder and harder to do because my formulas are the basis of life itself, so they're the most basic things you don't have in the most assimilable form, in the highest quality and purity we can find. So hopefully it's all going to be GRAS, generally regarded as safe, grandfathered in. We don't know. We'll find out, time will tell. GRAS, generally regarded as safe, within the United States is a different list than GRAS from Germans deciding what's GRAS in Germany. And what they did was they took the German medical model to write all these regulations, because what you had in the turn of the century was they imported drugs, radiation, surgery, and long hospital stays into the American medicine. They got rid of the naturopaths, the oxygen therapy institutes, the Ozone Institute. They were all doing well, but because they didn't pay to advertise in the American Medical Association journal back then, they were able to politically use the power of the press, the controlled press, to combine it with the people who don't want you to use anything other than their products, drugs, which was the oil barons and the railroad barons who owned and were buying the pharmaceutical companies back then. This is all under Eustace Mullins. You can find all this in history, names and dates. It proves everything I said. And so what they did was they had a coup d'etat. What they did was got rid of all natural healing methods in this country, switched over to the German medical molecule of drugs, radiation, surgery, and long hospital stays. This is an unnatural way. It doesn't work. I read you all the sites and why it doesn't work, how it got completely corrupt over time as they wormed their way in to sell more and more drugs, forced drugging of school children with Ritalin. You know, it's just outrageous what's going on. 85% of Americans are on drugs. Prescription drugs. 75 to 85% of Americans are taking drugs and think it's perfectly normal and that, well, my doctor said, and the doctor himself goes, oh, well, don't listen to those idiots in the natural industry. They don't know what they're talking about. I've been to med school and I've been lied to for 50 years. What, huh? What was that? You know, what are you going to do in the face of someone who fervently believes, because all he does all day is listen to drug salesmen coming into the office. Hey, I got this sample for your guys. I got this sample for your patients. I got this sample. These guys come in and give them free drugs all day long. They've been doing it for 20 years. They get free stethoscopes their first year in medical school. They get free vacations to go to the drug plants in medical school. As soon as they get out, they get free trips, Carnival cruises, all this stuff for selling drugs. These are the guys that we have given our power away to, and because we're lazy or too busy trying to earn a living, they assumed all the power and their union took over, and we got a problem with that happening. Well, thank you. Our time is up. Thank you very much. Thank you.